Aerovías de México S.A. C.V.operating as Aeroméxico, is the flag carrier airline of Mexico based in Mexico City. It operates scheduled services to more than 56 destinations in Mexico, North, South, and Central America, the Caribbean, Europe, and Asia. Its main base and hub is Mexico City International Airport, with a secondary hub at Monterrey. Grupo Aeroméxico includes Aeroméxico Mainline and Aeroméxico Connect. The group held number 1 place in domestic market share with 36.6% and number 2 place behind American Airlines with 15.3% of the international market share. In the 12 months ending March 2014, becoming Mexico's largest domestic airline group, Aeroméxico is one of the 4 founding members of the SkyTeam Airline Alliance, along with Air France, Delta Airlines, and Korean Air. History. The airline was established as Aeronaves de México on 15 September 1934, by Antonio Diaz Lombardo. The first plane was a Stinson Sr. Julio Ince piloted the maiden flight on the Mexico City-Acapulco route on 14 September 1934. 1940s. When World War II began, the airline continued to grow with the help of Pan Am, which owned 25% of the new Mexican airline. Aeroméxico saw few changes for the next 2 decades. However, during the 1950s, renovation began, and the airline took over various small competitor companies across the country, including Aerovías Guest that held the routes to Madrid and Paris. Aeroméxico added aircraft including the Douglas DC-3 and its successor, the Douglas DC-4. 1950s. During the late 1950s, the Douglas DC-4s were replaced by some pressurized Douglas DC-6 and 2 Bristol Britannias, the first turboprop passenger plane in the fleet, and in 1958, services were inaugurated to Idlewild Airport using the Britannias. The Mexico City-New York route would prove profitable for Aeronaves and its North American competitors. The airline was nationalized in 1959. 1960s. In the early 1960s, the fleet of Aeronaves de México included Douglas DC-3, Douglas DC-6, and Bristol Britannia aircraft. Starting in 1961, Aeronaves began replacing its piston-engine planes with new jets. The first jet-engined aircraft were a pair of Douglas DC-8s. The planes were used on routes within Mexico and to New York City. Between 1962 and 1963, Aeronaves de México took over Aerovías Guest Mexico, the second airline, and they were merged under the name Aeronaves de México. Later in the 1960s, more DC-8s were added and service to Europe was resumed, operated by 2 Comet 4C aircraft dry-leased by Aerovías Guest prior to the merger. 1970s. The 1970s brought dramatic changes for Aeroméxico. In 1970, under a government plan, Mexican domestic airlines were nationalized into an integrated air transport system under the control of Aeronaves de México. The system included 8 smaller carriers, although these were later disbanded. During the early 1970s, the remaining Douglas DC-6 and Bristol Britannia aircraft were retired. A new color scheme was introduced and the airline changed its name from Aeronaves de México to its current, shortened version of Aeroméxico in February 1972. Aeroméxico, as one of the launch customers of the Douglas DC-1030s program, received the first of its 2 planes in 1974, registered as XA-Doug and XA-DA. The same year, the airline also took delivery of the first 7 Douglas DC-932s. During this period, the airline's popularity and visibility grew dramatically. This was due in part to Aeromexico's involvement in Mexican movies. Basically, every time a character in any movie produced in Mexico had to fly somewhere, they supposedly flew on Aeromexico. Service to Canada was initiated, and in the early 1970s, 2 more DC-9-15s were added to the fleet. 1980s. The early 1980s were marked by expansion. A new color scheme was introduced. 2 DC-10-15 and a DC-10-30 planes were added in 1981, N1038 and N1003N, and in 1984, N3878P, later XARIY. Aeroméxico, one of the launch customers of the McDonnell Douglas MD-82, received the first 2 planes in late 1981. Between 1980 and 1981, 8 more DC-9-32 aircraft were added. On the 31st of August 1986, the company suffered its only fatal accident outside Mexico when Aeroméxico Flight 498, a Douglas DC-9, approaching Los Angeles International Airport, was struck by a small Piper aircraft. Both aircraft then fell to earth in the Los Angeles suburb of Cerritos, California. All 64 passengers and crew on board the DC-9-32 were killed, as were 3 on the Piper and 15 people on the ground. After 3 years and a long trial, the plane crew and the airline were found not to blame. This was because the pilot of the Piper had strayed into an air traffic control zone reserved for commercial flights. The same year, the airline was acquired to the charter carrier GATSA and used it for their charter operations until December. In April 1988, the state-owned company was declared bankrupt and grounded for 3 months because of lack of organization. A fleet with an average of 20 years without a renovation plan and a depredating administration by the Mexican government. In August, a privatization program was underway. This involved retiring the 8 Douglas DC-8s along with the remaining 10 DC-9-15 aircraft. Starting the privatization process included a new corporate name. The airline restarted operations with its predecessor's assets, including the headquarters building, maintenance hangar, some aircraft and some former Aeronaves de Mexico employees. 1990s. The early 1990s were turbulent times with the rise in fuel costs due to the Gulf War, and a domestic fare war caused by startup airlines like TASA, Saro, Aviaxa, among others, as well as constant labor problems. In April 1991, the first 2 767-200ers were introduced to the fleet, starting to replace DC-10s in services to Europe, New York and Tijuana. Another 2 767-300ERs joined the fleet later that year. This was all a part of a renovation and expansion program to introduce 24 B-757s, B-767s direct flights to Madrid and Paris from Mexico City, with Boeing 767s as well as services to Frankfurt via Paris, Rome via Madrid. In 1992, Grupo Aeroméxico was among other investors that failed to consummate the acquisition of Continental Airlines. After failing to invest in Continental, Aeroméxico acquired the bankrupt Aeroperu from the Peruvian government. They tried to use the same path that led Aeroméxico to its leadership in the domestic market with Aeroperu. In October 1992, 2 Boeing 767-300ers were added to the fleet, replacing the 2 older 767-300er jets. In 1993, Aeroméxico Group took over Mexicana, the second largest airline in the Mexican market under the same management. There was a great dispute in June 1993 with the pilot union regarding the transfer of flights to regional subsidiary Aeromontre, which had non-union pilots. Between 1994 and 1995, the 6 DC-10 aircraft in the fleet were finally retired. The last revenue flight was in 1995. In December 1994, the first of several devaluations in the next 18 months started, giving way to an economic crisis in Mexico. As a consequence, Aeroméxico had to cut capacity and flights to Frankfurt and Rome were cancelled. 4 MD-80s and 4 B-767s were returned to the lessors. Early retirement for pilots and other staff was underway. A new 767 was due on April 1995 was transferred to LAN Airlines. Flights to Madrid and Paris were operated only by two 767-300 jets. In 1996, Cintra was created to prevent the two main carriers from going bankrupt. Some B-757s of Aeroméxico's original renovation program were transferred to Mexicana and Aeropro. The market and the airline recovered between 1996 and 1998. 8 MD-80s were leased back along with two B-767-200ers. The sale of Grupo Cintra was scheduled after several delays in September 1999, and with the looming presidential elections in 2000, everything was delayed once again. The ruling party lost the election after 70 years in office and all the policies changed. Due to the recession in 2000, the new government put everything on hold, waiting for better economic conditions to start the stock sell-off. And just when everything was about to start, the 11th of September 2001 attacks occurred and nothing materialized since the two main carriers, Mexicana and Aeroméxico, were losing large amounts of money. 2000s. Between 2000 and 2005, Aeroméxico had an average fleet of 60 aircraft in mainline, plus 20 in aerolateral, as well as 5 CEOs during this time. After 9/11 and the Iraq War, it pursued a fleet renovation program. In 2003, the airline acquired its first Boeing 737-700 instead of the Boeing 717 as a replacement for its aging DC-9 aircraft. On the 29th of March 2006, Aeroméxico CEO André Conesa announced the inauguration of direct flights between Japan and Mexico City via Tijuana. This was after the purchase of two Boeing 777-200ers, making Aeroméxico the third airline in Latin America to fly regularly to Asia, after Varig and the now defunct VASP. Since Varig's demise, Aeroméxico is currently the only airline with this service. Aeroméxico resumed its Mexico City-Tijuana-Shanghai route twice a week as of the 30th of March 2010. Suspension of this flight was due to the 2009 flu pandemic. On the 29th of June 2006, the International Lease Finance Corporation and Aeroméxico announced that the airline will operate 3 Boeing 787 Dreamliners. Aeroméxico will lease the 5 787-8s from ILFC with deliveries scheduled to begin in early 2012. Another 2 planes on lease from ILFC will be in service by 2013, and 2 more in 2014. From 2006, Consorcio Aeroméxico S.A.de.C.V., the parent company of Aeroméxico at the time, faced large debts and had no profits to pay them off, so it offered Aeroméxico for sale in 2007. In early October, a week-long auction was held, with Grupo Financiero Banamex competing against the Saba family. On October 17, 2007, Banamex offered the highest bid and purchased the airline for $249.1 million. In October 2010, Aeroméxico's largest competitor, Mexicana de Aviación, filed for bankruptcy and was placed in administrative Administration, 2010s, Delta Aeromexico Alliance. In 2011, Delta Airlines and Aeroméxico signed an enhanced commercial alliance, building on an original agreement from 1994. The 2011 agreement provides for codeshare on all the carrier's Mexico-US flights, Delta investing $65 million in Aeroméxico shares, and Delta gaining a seat on the Aeroméxico board of directors. In March 2014, the airlines opened TechOps Mexico, a $55 million joint maintenance, repair and overhaul facility in Querétaro City, Mexico. In March 2015, the airlines filed applications for antitrust immunity, a first step in the creation of a $1.5 billion joint cooperation agreement that will allow Delta and Aeroméxico to jointly sell and share costs and profits on all Mexico-US routes. In May 2015, Mexican regulator approved the JCA, and in the same month the Mexican Senate approved open skies between the U.S. and Mexico. The approval of the JCA by the United States Department of Transportation is still pending. Dreamliners. On the 25th of July 2012, Andre Conesa, Aeroméxico CEO, announced the purchase of 10 Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners, albeit 6 firm orders and 4 options. With this, the company will become the first Mexican carrier to have this kind of equipment. In early July 2012, it was reported that the company was looking at Airbus A320 and A350, but ultimately decided on the aircraft manufacturer Boeing. The new order is added to the package of 20 aircraft that the company had announced in 2011, and 9 more Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner already provided. The delivery of the Dreamliners began in the summer of 2013. The total investment is $11 billion, and that includes the acquisition of 90 Boeing 737-8 MAX, which will be delivered during 2018. The airline took delivery of its first Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner in early August 2013 and officially launched commercial service on the 1st of October 2013. New technology. In 2016, Aeroméxico added 2Ku wireless internet service by GoGo to some 737-800 aircraft, including access to Netflix. On its 787-8 and 787-9 Dreamliners, it added Panasonic broadband internet, and on Embraer narrow-body aircraft, streaming entertainment via GoGo's GoGo Vision. In July 2016, the airline launched a completely new website, new check-in kiosks at Mexico City Airport, and announced plans to launch a completely new mobile app in the autumn of that year. The same year, the airline also co-sponsored the launch of Startup Accelerator MASH Challenge in Mexico. Corporate affairs. The headquarters are in Colonia Cuauhtémoc, Mexico City. The United States headquarters are in Houston. Destinations. New destinations. In an attempt to gain more worldwide presence and strengthen its network and to make connections easier and more frequent, Aeroméxico has started to develop new international markets. From 2006, it started operations to Tokyo from Mexico City via Tijuana. Service to Shanghai from Mexico City via Tijuana began in May 2008. New destinations in 2014 to 2016 included Panama City, Santo Domingo, Vancouver, Toronto, Boston, Medellin, Amsterdam, Cozumel, and Austin. Airline partnerships and codeshares. Aeroméxico has codeshare agreements with SkyTeam members Air Europa, Air France, Alitalia, CSA Czech Airlines, Delta Airlines, Garuda Indonesia, KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, Korean Air. Aeroméxico also code-shares with Aeromar S.A. de C.V. Alaska Airlines, Avianca Colombia, Avianca El Salvador, Copa Airlines Panama, El Al Israel Airlines Limited, Gulf Transportes Aéreos, Japan Airlines, LAN Airlines, TAM Airlines, WestJet. Bus services from Tijuana. Aeroméxico contracts with Inter-Californias to offer bus service from Tijuana to cities in California. In order to board the bus, a passenger must have a ticket tour from Tijuana Airport on Aeroméxico fleet. This section describes only the fleet operating under the Aeroméxico brand, and it does not include details of the Aeroméxico Connect fleet, which is a regional subsidiary of Grupo Aeroméxico. On 7 March 2012, the Boeing 787-8 arrived in Mexico City for promotion. As a Boeing 787 customer, Aeroméxico's CEO, André Conesa, was questioned on the routes the aircraft would serve once in Aeroméxico's fleet. The airline placed 9 orders of the aircraft, which will come with the new interiors and will seat around 240 passengers. The first routes were from Mexico City to New York, Paris, and Tokyo non-stop. In 2014, London and Madrid were added. Along with these, 10 Boeing 737-8 will arrive next year with new sky interiors. At the same time, Grupo Aeroméxico is looking for more 737 and Embraer jets to be added to the fleet. The firm order was confirmed for 5 additional 737-800 and 900 aircraft from ILFC, in addition to 2 more Embraer 190 from Azul Brazilian Airlines. In second quarter 2014, Grupo Aeroméxico retired 1 B737-700. The company added 2 B787, 1 B737-800 under pure lease agreements. The all-Boeing mainline Aeroméxico fleet consists of the following aircraft as of July 2016. Fleet gallery. Hover over each photo to view label. Detail. Retired fleet. Aeroméxico was one of the McDonnell Douglas MD-83 and MD-87 launch customers. Until the mid-2000s, the McDonnell Douglas DC-9 and MD-80 were the airline's workhorses, but were retired between 2004 and 2009. Subsidiaries. Aeroméxico Connect, formerly Aerolitoral, a regional airline based at General Mariano Escobedo International Airport in Monterrey. Aeroméxico Contigo, Aeroméxico's brand for select U.S.-Mexico flights. Aeroméxico Express, a commuter airline based at General Mariano Escobedo International Airport in Monterrey. It is a partnership between Aeroméxico and Aeromar. Former subsidiaries. Aerovías Guest. Aeropro, Peru's national flag carrier based in Lima International Airport. Mexicana, from 1993 to 1995. Aeromexpress, a cargo handler based at Mexico City International Airport in Mexico City. Aeroméxico Travel, a charter airline based in Cancun International Airport. Slogans: 1960s, 1970s, Mexico's largest airline. 1990s, La Línea Aérea Más Puntual del Mundo. Before 2009, Travel the World. 2010 to 2012, A Donde Levantas Sueños. 2012-2013, Nunca Nos Detenemos. 2013 to 2015, La Línea que nos une. 2016 present, La Línea de los Mexicanos y del Mundo. English slogan: Mexico's global airline. Incidents, accidents and hijackings. Aeronaves de Mexico, the 26th of March 1954, near Monterrey, Mexico. XA Gunner Douglas DC-3, the 2nd of June 1958, near Guadalajara, Mexico. XA Evia Lockheed 749A Constellation, the 19th of January 1961, in New York, New York. XA Douglas DC-8-21, the 13th of August 1966, near Acapulco, Mexico. XA Douglas DC-8-51, the 24th of December 1966, Lake Texcoco, Mexico. XA Douglas DC-8-51, the 12th of June 1967, near La Paz, Mexico. XAFUW Douglas DC-3A, Aeroméxico, on the 20th of June 1973, Douglas DC-9-15 XA SOC, near Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Aeroméxico Flight 229, a daily service from George Bush Intercontinental Airport to LIC Gustavo Diaz Ordaz International Airport, crashed into the side of a mountain while on approach, killing all 27 people on board. The 2nd of September 1976, Douglas DC-9-15 XA SOF at Leon, Guanajuato del Bajío Airport. On the 27th of July 1981, Aeroméxico Flight 230 XA Denner Douglas DC-9-32 crashed while landing in Chihuahua, killing 32 of the 66 people on board. The 8th of November 1981, XA Dio Douglas DC-9-32 in Sierra de Guerrero, Mexico. On the 31st of August 1986, Aeroméxico Flight 498, operated with a McDonnell Douglas DC-9-32, was on its final approach into Los Angeles International Airport when it collided with a Piper PA-28 Archer over Cerritos, California. The resulting crash killed all 67 people on both aircraft and 15 people on the ground in Cerritos. On the 6th of October 2000, Aeroméxico Flight 250 N936 Ella Douglas DC-9-31 at General Lucio Blanco International Airport, Reynosa, Mexico. On the 9th of September 2009, Aeroméxico Flight 576 was hijacked between Cancun and Mexico City.